Hi. In this video, I'll cover how to play as white in the closed Catalan, specifically the line with 6c6 for black, which is the main option to go into the closed Catalan. Um, Black also has the knight d7 option, which is another main move, and I covered that in the last video. So against that setup with knight d7, I recommended queen c2 and then knight to d2. Here it doesn't work so well because after queen c2, uh, black has other options since he didn't uh, commit his knight to d7 so early. Like for example c5, the quick plan with b6 and c5 uh, works pretty well for black here. So that's why knight c3 I think is the best move for white here. Um, and the only like immediate drawback is that it may seem like it'll be hard to recapture the pawn on c4, but after knight b5, white's gonna get it back immediately because if black tries to defend it, white can just take here, and uh, black can't take back because of the pin. So after the move c6, I mean the Catalans are of course starts after uh, these moves. This is just one move, but after black plays c6 going into the closed Catalan, and then white plays knight c3. Um, Here black has like three main options um, that are actually played. A5 is the least common option, but it's actually not bad for black. Um, but I think the move Rook E1, which is not played a lot but has like a huge win rate for white in master games, I think is a good choice. Um, After knight d7, which is black's main move, and then white can play knight to d2. Here, e5 is probably black's main option because if he plays a waiting move or just a normal move like rook e8, white plays e4 first, and then after if black has to play e5 or else he's just gonna have a passive position, and then but we can just take everything and end up with the pass pawn. So if black doesn't play, if black doesn't wait and plays e5 immediately, white is still getting a nice position um, because we end up, after all the trades happen, white can play knight f3, and after takes, and bishop e6, and bishop e3, we end up in, in a standard isolated queen's pawn position, but here uh, white is doing pretty good because two sets of minor pieces are already off the board, and like white is the only one who can play for any sort of advantage. So that's the move 7a5. That's of course not the main option. Knight d7 is, but b6 is another common try. And here white should play knight e5. Um, and this just makes it hard for black to develop now because the c6 pawn is under pressure. Black can't really take here either. So black's main option is, I think black's best option is bishop a6, but bishop b7 is also there. And after bishop b7, white can play e4 and get like a typical like position, something that's normal for the closed Catalan. And let's say d takes e4, this is just good for white, because black is going to have a hard time playing c5, which is the only way for him to really equalize. After knight d7, knight d7 is a big mistake, and um, white has the really strong move, knight takes c6. So after bishop b7 here, e4, this is actually a really nice trap for white, because after knight c6, we take with the e-pawn to open the bishop up. Then, even if black includes those moves, it doesn't matter, but now d6 is the idea of the whole knight takes c6 sacrifice, because if black takes on g2, we take on e7 first, and then white is just up upon here and should be winning. So, yeah, that's the b6 line with bishop b7. But bishop a6, I think, is a better try. Wait, sorry. After the bishop b7 line, or after black plays bishop b7 and white plays e4, black's best try is probably to take on c4, and then when we take back, pin the knight. But we can defend, and after black kicks away our knights, black is just has a black just doesn't have a great position unless he does something concrete, which is why he should probably take the knight and then grab the pawn on d4. But this position, white just gains a bunch of tempos in the queen, and now he gets one on the bishop too, and this is just uh, much more pleasant for white, and like you can see by the Grandmaster games here, white has great results. So that's for after b6 and 95, bishop b7, but bishop a6 is probably the better option, and then white here has, uh, a lot of different options, but I think the third most common move, rook e1, it scores really well, and I think there's a reason why, because black is left with a tough choice. He pretty much has to take, and both of his captures are not looking too great for him, because after d takes c4, we can collect the pawn on c6, and after takes, black can attack our bishop, but after queen a4, white is doing good in the complications. The d4 pawn is not hanging here, actually, because after bishop f3 or bishop at g2, just we can retreat the bishop, and then black's bishop is actually trapped. Where we're just going to take it the next turn, and it has nowhere to go. So that's why after queen a4, black can't take on d4, and the only move for black is bishop b4, so that when we go bishop f3, he can block on a5. Like any other move for black, let's just say like h6, just white is threatening just to retreat the bishop, and then black's bishop will be trapped. So after bishop b4, bishop f3, and then bishop a5, white needs to defend the d4 pawn. So let's say rook d1, and then this is just an example of how things can go. White, a lot of the times after bishop d2, which is just lining up on the bishop on a5, white can get the move d5 in, and then after takes, and bishop takes a5, and we end up in a position where I think objectively the engine says black has chances. Black, the game's still going, but I think white has a much more pleasant position here because, I mean, these pawns are just very weak, and it feels like they're about to fall soon. So that's bishop a6, and then after rook e1, other than dc4, there's also bishop takes c4, and then, okay, we should pick up the bishop, and then here, we play e3, and the idea is, I mean, we can, after like knight d5, let's say, which is the main move, white can play a4, and then stop black from going b5, so that he can play like bishop f1 and collect the pawn. So after knight a6, which one of the options, like bishop f1, knight b4, and bishop c4. White is a little better. After knight b4 though, which is probably black's best option. White is trying to just get the knight to d3 and make use of the pawn on c4. White should just move his queen and rook. Now, black plays a6, a normal move. I mean, but after rook b1 and then queen c7, black's just playing normal move. Here, b3. No, white doesn't get the pawn back on c4, but he gets a lot of compensation for it. Now, the knight's getting stuck, so it has to take on c1. And then we're going to end up taking the pawn on b3. Black can't do anything about that, but then we'll have a position where we're down a pawn, but our rooks and queen are lined up on the open file, and our bishop is putting pressure on the queen side, and we have ideas like after the knight moves, we have ideas like d5 because of the pin on the d file, and we could put our knight on f4. So in this video I covered after the move 6c6, which is black's main way to go into the closed Catalan, and knight c3, I covered black's other options except for knight d7, which are b6 and a5. Then in the next video, I'll cover knight to d7, which is the main move, but the other moves are also quite common. So yeah, thank you for watching the video.